All right, it's showing us live on Facebook and live on YouTube. I am going to go ahead and give it a second to alert people that are following us that we are live, and I'm just going to check that we in fact are. All right, and as you guys are starting to hop on, we'll be getting started momentarily. Please give us that thumbs up and a comment so I know who you are that's tuned in with us this morning. Excellent. I already see Parker Brown's on here with us. Thank you, Parker, for hopping on to the broadcast and starting to comment on our video. So I'll go ahead and get started. Most of you already know me by now. I'm Juliette Abdel, President and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for staying in tune on all things COVID, all things that are going on in our city, county, state, and of course, federally. Be sure that you share this video out to your network so folks are just as informed as you are about what's going on and the resources that might be available to them. And if you are a newcomer, then I hope that this encourages you to tune in to future broadcasts that we have. Make sure that you hit that like button, hit the follow so you can get those timely alerts when we post fresh new content. Now, at the same time that we are streaming this on our Facebook page, we also have it streamed on our YouTube channel. That's Westminster Chamber of Commerce. But feel free to connect with us on all of our social media platforms, on Instagram and Twitter at Westy Chamber, and of course on LinkedIn, Westminster Chamber of Commerce, where we like to engage with you if you use our hashtags or post friendly comments or things of the such. Now, as along the way, you've seen me pull up different comments from Parker, from Peter, from Dave Carpenter, those folks that are already tuned in with us. Thank you guys for taking a second to spend some time out of your morning with us. The chat function is available to any of you that are viewing this video. Use this to post any comments that you might have, any pleasantries as we're starting the day. If you have any questions that you would like for our mayor to answer, whether it's about information that he shares or just broad information that you might be curious about, please type it into the comments of this broadcast. We'll be sure to pick that back up after the regular update that we have so that we can address those for you in a timely manner. Of course, Facebook likes to tell me who some people are that are tuned in and who others may not be. So the best way that I know that you're on here with me is when you give me a thumbs up. It's not just because I want a pat on the back or when you comment into the comment section. So thank you so much, Councilor Bowles, for hopping on here and sharing a quick good morning notes to the mayor and myself. Now, you all know that on Mondays, we kick off the week with our mayor who shares really realistically what's going on around us and everything. Some of it is a little bit depressive, but have no fear because I try and smile throughout this, but we also try and pivot and adjust and provide you with resources to address the problems that we're currently facing. So before I turn this over to our mayor, I hope you guys had a terrific week last week, whether or not you celebrate Thanksgiving. I hope that you took some time to be mindful of where you're at, that you did some things that hopefully fed your soul and your mind, and that you are reset and recharged for the week that's ahead. Now, with that, Mayor Atchison, I will mute myself and the floor is all yours.
Well, good morning. And for Parker and Peter and David and John, good morning. We are off to a full week this week. Hope everyone had some downtime last week. We know that a lot of people that normally we count on getting information to us were off because of the holiday. One of the things I will tell you is we talked very extensively last week with both the health departments. And because of the holiday, a lot of the reporting groups were not going to be in until today. So if you go to the state website, you're going to find what looks like a dip in the infection numbers. I will caution you, be very skeptical of that because we've been told by them that the likelihood that the state will be in arrears in getting all the correct information in and then getting it put up onto the website. So I know I looked this morning and it looked like there had been a drop in both counties. but I'm very skeptical of that number not being skewed because of the holiday. One of the things that we will be looking at is probably on Tuesday or Wednesday. If we look at the numbers, we may very well be shocked to see a big spike, but that's really going to be because of the delay in reporting, not necessarily the big spike in actual infections. Those infections will have already occurred. One of the things that I did want people to be aware of, we are in both counties still in red, which means we're above the 350 mark, and in both cases, we're well above 1,000 in both counties. The state had started to have conversation last week with a couple of health departments. We don't know to what extent that some of the counties that are in red last week are on the verge of being put into purple by the state. Now that means that we're going to a full shutdown. Jefferson County and Adams County are both in that conversation because of the high number of infections and the positivity rates, but also because of declining numbers in hospital facilities that are available for COVID patients. We've been talking about this for some time, that the determining factor of when we see that happen will be driven by hospitalizations. We're seeing it nationwide. We were at around 1,700 of the 1,800 beds statewide last week that were already occupied, and this is going to continue to climb. We saw a lot of travel. If you don't believe it, ask the mayor of Denver last week on people being advertising to be out and about, and not only just here locally, but on doing airplane traveling. Saw one of the biggest travel days over Friday, Saturday dates that we'd seen since back in March. And DIA, I'm sure, was very appreciative of the business, and so were the airlines. But that goes along with the potential of seeing another surge in infections over the next 2 weeks. This is what they've been projecting could happen between Thanksgiving and Christmas. We'd see this big, long surge, partly because of holiday travel. We don't know how big that's going to be or how fast it would show up, but we do know that we've got a number of issues talking about how do we control it. I think that my experience with the businesses that we have here in the Westminster area is that from the business standpoint, I think everyone is doing a very good job of trying to comply and to keep it. Our restaurants are already back to carry out, delivery. We saw a good compliance on a pretty well a citywide basis, at least what we were getting reported out of Tri-County Health, that the mask usage that they were seeing in the city of Westminster, primarily on the Adams County side, was in the mid-90%. We don't have that same kind of report from Jefferson County. We do now have a strong indication that we'll be doing weekly meetings with Jefferson County as we had been doing before with Adams County. So that's going to help us some. We have seen some action by Tri-County last week that they actually closed 5 businesses down in Douglas County. They later were able to come back and get into compliance and get a compliance issue worked out with Tri-County, which allowed them to open up a couple of days later. But I think we have to understand that this has to be taken as serious. And we have looked at how do we do this. All I can ask people to do is to continue to do what they've been doing if you are in compliance. Now, one of the questions that we've posed to the state is if we can have restaurants that can prove that they are in compliance, that they're following all the process and procedures on a case-by-case basis, is there an opportunity to have a discussion about allowing restaurants, after they have come up with how they're going to do things and they have met with a representative of the local health department, to potentially reopen? That discussion has been elevated to the state. We have not had any response from them at this point, but it is something that they are looking at. As we know, a lot of our businesses are very good about complying with the mask orders, with the social distancing, with the cleaning, and making sure that people are kept social distance in the restaurant as well as in the business itself. So it's something that's on the table. It's open for discussion, but we don't have a response at this point. We will continue to raise that in our meetings this week and next with the health department of both Tri-County and Jeffco to see if there's any possibility of that being implemented. Now, one of the concerns that the health department raised when we brought this up was we don't have the staff to go out and do all these repeat inspections. So it may take time if this ever gets approved. One of the other things that Westminster has been able to negotiate with the state, and we're working through our city staff to get that stood up, is a new space in Westminster for testing. Now, we're looking at about 1,000 a day in a site that will be put together in conjunction with the state because the health department for Jefferson County does not have staff available. But we believe that there's an opportunity that Westminster will be able to staff us with our own employees, and that with the testing facilities and other material coming in, we will be able to stand up a new site, hopefully within the next week or so. But this is about in the neighborhood of about $100,000, excuse me, cost. But we'll use CARES dollars that we have from the county and the state to get this done. The biggest part of it is getting the state to go ahead and finalize this. We should know something by the middle of this week if this is going to be something we can do. The other part is defining a good location where we can handle the kind of traffic that we're going to expect to see in there. So that could be someplace like the new downtown. It could be at the City Park Rec Center. It needs a place that we can queue cars up and not impact the main thoroughfares with the cars queuing up, as we've seen at other places. So stay tuned. We'll know that as soon as we can. We'll get that information out if this is going to be able to move forward. We'll make sure to get it on all our social media accounts and on to our website. But we'll also make sure that Juliet's aware of when and where that's going to happen. Juliet, because of the holiday, there's not a lot of new stuff. And like I said, I'm just being optimistic and cautious about the numbers only because we were warned that we could see a downturn basically just because of a lack of reporting from the holiday period.
And that makes sense. I know at some point, especially last week, you had shared, Mayor, that the site at Water World had gotten to a point where there were a lot of people that were getting tested. So there was a little bit of a delay on some of those results and things like that. So it naturally makes sense. So I do ask, if you did go and travel and go somewhere, whether you're feeling unwell or if you went to a hot spot that is up and growing, and that you test and make sure that you are fine. I think it's better for everybody to be safe in the long run than to discover something later on in the future. So I'd encourage that. It's great to hear that we're going to set up another location that's for the general public. I believe the location that we both referenced last week for business use is up and going. That started on the 24th. Again, that was a partnership between the city, if I'm not mistaken, and ADCO for businesses that have employees that they would like to get tested on that site as well. So Mayor, you did share a few different things, and we have at least one question that's come through. I know I've seen a comment. It looks like Wayne is tuned in with us from the YouTube channel. So thank you, Wayne, for hopping on to a different platform and engaging with us as well. I see Tara on here with us. I also see Amy, Jax, thank you for hopping on and tuning into the broadcast. Michelle Trujillo, thank you as well. Now, this question does come from Michelle. It's a longer question, Mayor, so I'm posting it out. And just so you all know, I post the question out, I read it so that the Mayor has a second to hear what the question is, and hopefully we can answer it right then. If it is more detailed, we will come back to you and transparently place the answer so that everybody knows what it is. And if they share a similar sentiment or thought, they can have that answer. So this question comes from Michelle. Michelle is a resident I know here of Westminster and is connected to small business. She is referencing the Maker Housing Assistance Program. Sites and DeMont gave some information on this assistance program, so both those counselors have. And she would like the city to look further into the program, as Adams County recently announced another round of funding through them, yet they haven't made it through the first round. That they've indicated that there's a severe backlog, maybe a lack of staff that's going on. And so her question really, I know she's prefaced it with all of this information that's been given out to her, is that how is the city going to make sure that the assistance that's out there are actually fulfilling what they're setting out to do or sharing out to the public?
Well, I was trying to read through the question because it's in the comment section and trying to figure out exactly which one it was. And I know you read it correctly, but it's typed Sites and Mott. It is Demott, Demott. Michelle, I will try to answer this as best as I understand it. You're talking about some of the programs through Maker Housing. I'm not sure what program you're discussing. What I'll have to do is take a look at this and see if I can have someone from our Economic Development Office read it out, and we'll get the information back to Juliet. What I will tell you is that the Westy Rise programs that we have been doing, they have all expended all their funds. We do not have any grants and stuff left. We've spent everything. We do have programs that we are helping with, in some cases through the county, but the county is administering those. Maker Housing is probably one that you're talking about that has money direct from the county, but I'm not 100% sure. So I need to take your question and pose it to them, and then I'll try to get that back. I'm trying to actually copy it while I'm here on this, doing this, so I don't miss it.
Well, while you are doing that, Mayor, I know that was a great question, Michelle. I know there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of people that they're kind of reassigning to review things and make sure certain programs are running appropriately. It is a valid question. If we're opening a second round, how come we have not made it through the first? So we'll try and get you some sort of an answer, especially since it's more.
Yeah, what it is. I know that.
Yeah, especially since it's more.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah. It's just going to have to go to the county and figure out.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind that the CARES dollar that the county got from the federal, they have until the end of next month, being December, which starts tomorrow, to expend all their CARES dollars that they were allocated. Westminster will meet its mark of getting all of their CARES dollars spent. At least that's the.
Absolutely, and thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing anything unless you have something.
Yes. So I do have one question that comes to us from Peter. This question relates to special session. So for those of you that may not be aware, our state legislature has reconvened starting today to take up issues or measures that are related to kind of COVID recovery or strategies to support businesses during this time. Peter's question is asking, what can we be talking about to our representatives as they're having special session this week at the state level?
Peter, this is one of the pieces that I believe there are 5 topics that they identified for the special session, if I remember right. One of them is support for businesses and unemployed. I have a number of questions to this that we asked to some of the representatives this past week. I said, okay, going into 2021 in the budget, you were $3 billion short. You've covered $2 billion of it, and you've pushed the other shortfall into the 21-22 budget. But you haven't identified how you're going to make up that shortfall. Now, House Speaker Becker, who will still be House Speaker until January, indicated about 2 weeks ago that there was some additional money that came in from revenue that they had not anticipated, and there was some federal funds. To my knowledge, that pocket of both those sets of funds is somewhere in the neighborhood of around $400 million. If you're going to cover a stimulus to the businesses that have had to close or reduce their capacity and do a funding for those who have been laid off to the tune of somewhere around 2 to 3 million people in the state, how far will $400 million go? Mm-hmm. And will this be like the last one that came from the stimulus from the state, a $375 one-time unemployment benefit? Those questions have not been answered. That is part of what the special session is supposed to do. I am very concerned that having done this, that they've given an illusion that they've got a lot of money that's going to pull a lot of businesses and unemployed people out of the cellar that they're in. But I don't know where they're getting the money. $400 million compared to $1 billion shortfall for 21-22. I just don't know how much that's going to be given to people. I don't know how long it will last. And the decision by the Fed, especially in the Senate, until we get through this special election in January, we don't know who's going to control the Senate. The House, we're pretty sure what's done there because nobody's been contested and there are no current runoffs that I'm aware of in the House. But the Senate went back to work today. Whether or not they can come together with the House before the January change of administration is a test to be seen. They are still in control, and they have not pushed forward any stimulus packages out of the Senate in months. The House has made some, but the two cannot seem to get together and work together. What, in what my opinion is, they are not taking care of the people of this country. This is too much of a political battle back and forth instead of looking at who you're supposed to be there to serve. That will get me in trouble.
Well, and it is a rather frustrating, because here we have our businesses tied up, and then we're turning around and we're asking for help for them, and we find ourselves in this position where it's almost like a gridlock. They're not getting the support, they're not able to keep going, and here we are trying as best as we can. Peter, you referenced a great question. I know the mayor hit the nail on the head with that. This is a special session, so there should be about 3 days, I believe, that they're carving out to focus on COVID relief type of things. Our understanding is that they've kind of worked outside of the time period that they kicked the session off to think of what topics to try and bring forward from various working groups. Focus on small business aid, I know, is one, sales tax relief, childcare support, housing and direct rental assistance, and increasing broadband access, in addition to food pantry assistance and utility assistance, are just a few of the topics that could potentially we can see being discussed over the next few days. So one of the things the mayor did highlight is this need for federal to actually discussing things in this roundabout way. I know last week, if I'm not mistaken, Mayor Jeffco delegation did send out a letter encouraging our candidates or congressional officials really to be focusing on those some sort of support to our businesses. If I'm not mistaken, you were one of the prominent people that signed off on that. I know myself and the chamber did as well.
Yeah, myself, the other mayors from Jefferson County, the commissioners, and a number of the state elected officials from the county, as well as you indicated, the chamber. This went to our congressional delegation to try to get them to do something. But again, it's really, in my opinion, hung up at the Senate. If they're not willing to take it up and do anything before the transition, it's just going to make it that much harder. Peter, going back, had a couple of follow-ups. I think the state is doing what they can with the funds that they have, but it's really the big dollars in this are going to come from the feds. That's where the billions of dollars would come from, not a few hundred million. And a few hundred million on a nationwide basis would be nothing. It wouldn't be worth the time to do it because you're just not going to get anything to people if you have to spend that kind of a small amount of money on 50 states. But I would encourage you and every person listening to write to your local federal representatives to encourage them to do something sooner than later, and to sit down and take politics off the table and sit down and figure out what the economy needs. Stop all the social media stuff. Let's get down to work. Let's make something happen. And they could make it happen within days if the two groups would sit down and do something. I don't know how long the session will last here locally at the state, but I think they've taken on 5 very large questions, and I just don't know where they think they're going to get the kind of money that they're going to need to carry the state without federal aid. Put federal aid into the package, get state package with it, and I think we have a chance of getting some reasonable dollars that could have an effect on our businesses here, keeping them from going bankrupt.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think those are some really great points that you're making, Mayor. And for those of you that are just now hopping on, we have Mayor Atchison with us, who shared updates related to COVID, some resources that are in the community, some new testing site potentially here in our city, and then some of the advocacy efforts that we've been successfully partnering on. This is a joint effort. I mean, we really want as loud as voices that can be out there and making sure that we're representing our communities as best as we can. So know that one of the key positives in all of this is our ability to work together. I know know the mayor and I are in touch and in sync on a lot of things moving forward. So I hope that answers your question, Mayor. I see, or Peter, I hope that answers your question. I see Mike on here with us. I also see Emmanuel, and it looks like Wayne has included a link to special session. I would pull it up, but it's not showing up on my side. So I'll make sure that I include that for those of you that might be interested in hopping on with that. It looks like Marcella has also made a quick comment as well to us, and that she's tuned into the broadcast. Thanking you, Mayor, for hopping on here, for sharing some of those statements. She's saying so many of those statements are exactly what they need to hear and do, but they sadly are not doing so. So appreciate you, Marcella. It's never easy for us to kind of reiterate things over and over again, but I think if we continue to do that, the message will get there from numerous parties. And then we had, so I do want to throw this in there, and then I'll see if you have any additional comments, Mayor. We had kicked off our Dine Local campaign it was branded as the Taste of the Metro, so that folks can pop by to different locations, grab samples and things of that such. Obviously, with the new COVID restrictions and guidelines, that is not something that is, one, our businesses can handle and accommodate, and two, ideal in bringing people out there on a continual basis. So stay tuned. We have pivoted that program, and we are updating that event page in partnership with the City of Westminster. So still a way that you can be incentivized to support those businesses and do your part in putting where your money, where your heart is. So with that, Mayor, do you have any additional questions that you wanted to share with folks as kind of a closure? I see Marcella has pulled up another comment that I can pull on here before you share your notes, if that's okay.
Yeah. Marcella, I would just tell you that right now, all the Wesley Rise grants have been expended. We don't have any left, was the last report I had from staff. The only thing I would call back up to is our food boxes that are at the Westminster Rec Center on 105th and Sheridan. This past Wednesday, we were there, but we were giving out coupons. They didn't get the deliveries of food. So first of all, thank you to all the local restaurants who were willing to put coupons out. Those are reimbursed through CARES dollars. So it brings business into the restaurants and keeps them supplied. I am not sure if we'll be back to actual food boxes this Wednesday or back to gift cards. But I know that in the time I was there, I think I saw a little over 300 people came through, and we opened up the gates early.
Yeah. And I think that's I mean, we had a question about that just last week about, if I'm not mistaken, about those food boxes and their availability, because people have been accessing those and using them to the fullest. So I'm glad to hear that that's been continuing to be successful, whether it's through direct perishables or those gift cards that we're supporting businesses in the long run as well. It doesn't look like I have any additional questions on my end. So if that's okay, I'll start wrapping this out. For those of you that are tuned into our broadcast, thank you so much for engaging with us. Please be sure that you reach out to the mayor or myself with any comments or questions that you might have. If you hear this broadcast and it's later on after we're no longer live, you can still comment, you can still ask those questions. I will turn around and get those shared out to the mayor, and he'll come back to us with some of those details. If you ask something that may not be something that we had necessarily the details of on hand right now, we'll get back to you and place those into the comment section, in addition to also sharing this special session link. So for those of you that are interested to know what's going on at the state legislature, you can follow it over the next couple of days during this time that they have reconvened. If you do watch this on a replay, please give us that hashtag replay so we know that you enjoyed this broadcast, you picked up some information and are aware of what's going on. And know that this week, I know we're picking back up from a holiday, so our programming is picking back up, but it's a little bit different. We have our virtual job fair and then some updates along the way. So tune in as we release the rest of this week's topics, and make sure that you dine, shop local, do business. If you've come back after traveling and you're feeling unwell, or you've been in an area where there's been major exposure, please consider going to test yourself to make sure your well-being is taken care of, and those that you love as well. And Mayor, I appreciate you being on here every week with me, sharing some updates with everybody and doing what you're doing best.
Thank you, Julia. You guys